It is inevitable that we will fight. Inevitable. I'm telling you this from a military standpoint. It is inevitable that our forces, the people that we are standing against, will use coercive force. And how will I say this? Let's judge it this way. Power corrupts. Absolute power absolutely corrupts. Who is to possess all of the coercive force if the New World Order has its way? One group of people. I suggest you open this up and read it again. If you doubt that, then you are ignorant. Or obviously have not read this before. Because this entire document is a series of checks and balances to put chains upon a government that they knew would go bad. That they knew would become corrupt. Because it is the nature of man to be that way. A deal only exists when there are two sides. If one side has all the force, no deals stand. Oh, and many people think they are the pet puppies. In fact, I love our enemy the way they've done it. We have an elitist mentality that has been fabricated in this country, in which there are special people separate from everybody else. You will govern over the animals of the earth, the peasants. Oh, and by the way, you will have supreme power of life and death, and you'll have all the food. We didn't tell you who they were. We left this nice little image here, blank. And you know what? There are enough greedy, arrogant, selfish people that will put their face into this picture, that they have no problem finding the dupes to do their bidding. They didn't tell you who the special puppies were. Consider their own writings. The CFR's own magazine stated uncategorically that they wanted to see the population of the planet at approximately 2 billion people, January of 1992. By the year 2008, I will rub that in because you are seeing many variations on this. Considering that we are screaming peace, peace, we have 150-some wars at present on this planet, and they plan on fabricating a few more. How can you kill by the year 2008 over 3.5 billion people naturally? You can't. In the article it stated that through pestilence, war, famine, and other fabricated destructive acts, they will kill billions, not millions. To conceive of the number itself is out of our mind for one reason and one reason only. In 1932, when the Harvest of Sorrow was at its peak and the American media could have covered it, several hundred, shall we say, leaning reporters went to Russia. They physically watched Russians shot to death for digging acorns out of the snow. Out of the 114 or so reporters who saw this incident, only 2 actually reported it, because the glorious social haven known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was the ideal form of government for anybody who had a leftist lean. In the Harvest of Sorrow that took place over a 3.5-year period, 14.5 million Ukrainians starved to death in the breadbasket of Russia. 14.5 million. Imagine walking the distance of the state of Michigan and finding virtually every human soul dead. Every home, every building, every store, every fire station, every city hall, everywhere. They did this 3 times in Russia, and the media did not cover it at all, or gave it very little coverage, because, wink and a nod, they were doing the party's bidding. An interesting twist if you think that communism is dead. For years, using the proper techniques in propaganda, many people who called Alan Cranston a communist were ridden into the ground. Well, Comrade Gorbachev now is working as the coordinator of base closings in the United States as a director under the Clinton administration. He works out of the Presidio. His number 2 man presently working for him is Alan Cranston, who is presently working out of the Presidio also. Strange, or is that bedfellows? Maybe the 2 words go together. Is it an accident? No. Are you conditioned not to think? Yes. Now, I came into this originally back in 1975, 76, totally ignorant of any of what we're talking about now. I was well trained as an intelligence analyst and as a counterintelligence coordinator, but first as an intelligence analyst. I never put a name on something I haven't done research on extensively. And in fact, anybody who's dealt with intelligence knows that the first thing that you learn to write is a question mark. Everything is done with verifiers, multiple verifiers, and still a question mark is left in place because you understand the word counterintelligence, disinformation. I've come a long trail to get to where I am right now. I am by no means ignorant of my enemy. I worked for the other side. It is that simple. That's a good question. For a period of time, originally when I worked with them, there's a point in time in any career, especially with the military, where you have to choose. Not just the military, but the working circles inside, the intelligence fields, etc. You either cut it, leave, or you stay. But if you stay, you progressively sell your soul deeper and deeper into a mechanism that has blackmail capabilities. And more you have to give instead of take. You never retire. Well, I have a wife and children. I wasn't raised the way that I was being conditioned, and I thank God for the people who raised me, for my parents. And there was a great decision that I made, and it was important to my wife, and it was important to my family. And I also understood that for a time, and I'll be quite honest, my primary concern was taking care of them, period. Not to talk to people like you, not to talk to anybody. Oh, within my close circles and people that I knew very, very close, people who I relied upon to protect my life, yes. But that's all. But what I've seen is this. Everybody has the same mentality, and there's no place to hide. An old gentleman, I'll repeat this every time I speak because it's prophetic. In 1939 and 1940, his family lived in Poland. When the Russians and the Germans came from both directions, he fled Poland. His grandfather took the family out of the country by the skin of their teeth with no personal possessions. They left and settled in Chicago. This last January, I met with him when we were talking at a VFW hall. And he came up, and this man is now a grandfather, and he said, Mark, there's no place left to run. My grandfather left Poland in that way. Where am I to run? If we do not stand and fight now, we will die. For the enemy cannot suffer for someone like me to live if they win. And do you think, honestly, with 75% of the population to be eliminated as their goal, that any of you sitting in this room are going to be allowed to survive? Oh, there will be deals, but remember this, a deal only exists when there are two sides. And none of you are that special. None of you. No status that I see here would buy you out of this fate. Oh, yes, you can sell your family out for a little while. You can get the neighbor's piano next door. With the search and seizure laws right now and the 1-800-SCREW-YOUR-NEIGHBOR, and excuse me, that's the best term I can use, all of these will be checked off the rest of the way. And some of them already are because of that. But in the end, they eat their young. That's a blessing thought for me if I do perish, knowing for a fact that even were they to be victorious using the stooges that they might have, they eat their young. That's good. But they will not win. I've been from one end of the country to the other at one time or another. We've spoken in the last year and a half all over the nation. I have met tens of thousands. Tens and tens of thousands. The most dangerous part right now is that we must hold them back. This would have started even months or perhaps even a year ago. Waco put us this close, and most people were ignorant because they are isolated and they are not understanding what is happening amongst the population.